Actually, if you're
I don't need to be that much louder. I don't know.
He doesn't need to be up or anything?
no, I'm just saying. I think he had the volume down the guitar.
I did. Okay. I was trying to blend in.
Oh, okay.
I could blow you guys all up.
Sweet
The
talent.
loudest dude in here. Are we live?
Yeah.
All right.
Hello.
Hey, world.
Well, hello.
We're at the parlor here, the Them Vibes
Yes.
Parlor
Yeah.
in East Nashville, Tennessee. What a
Well-
grand time.
Welcome. Yes.
We have our special guest here, Bobby Holland, who is our
Bobby.
fantastic, fabulous friend first and producer, obviously everything. And he's done the last few Them Vibes records, Maggie Rose records. He's in a band called The Daybreaks. He does the Daybreaks records. True or false? He just got back from Australia.
True. Let's see, what is that, 56 hours ago? 2.5 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in the
Still
future.
still jet lagged as hell.
So what are you doing over there?
Besides buying awesome hats,
Yeah.
what were you doing? Is that not the greatest hat you ever seen? Yeah.
I was producing the record for this really great Aussie band called the Vaudeville Smash.
Awesome. We were
they're-
just checking them out. Actually, I love their sound. It's so
They're
cool.
hilarious. I love it because they're all like unparalleled, amazing top-level musicians, and they write just really fun music. Something I think people are too serious these days,
Yeah.
and these guys write just really fun songs.
I consider them cheeky, you know.
It's cheeky.
It's
yeah.
sophisticated. It's sophisticated cheek.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Sophisticated cheek.
Everybody's always looking for
It's a new style.
Everybody's looking for a sophisticated sheep. And if you get two of them, man, you're winning, Jack. Let me tell you.
That's good. But actually, some backstory on how we all met. I'm gonna let Kyle take this one because
Gosh, well, yeah.
Oh,
Bobby.
jeez.
We go way back. This guy,
We're like 20 years ago.
yeah.
Jeez,
When I
probably.
graduated high school, this guy came and played my high school graduation party. That's no lie. His band at the time.
But I met you a couple years before that.
That's true.
Were you in high school together?
Oh
No.
no.
So you were in high school, and then you came and played the high school.
Right.
Yeah,
And but you're the same age.
No.
I'm just saying. I'm like, I just think it'd be so cool. Like, oh wow, they're really doing well over there.
There's an age difference between us, yeah. I'm a couple years younger, yeah.
I'm 14 and Kyle's still 16.
got you.
Right.
He graduated early.
So you're just cruising over to his high school.
Yeah.
It's like,
What did you play?
all right.
Do you remember what did you play at that high school?
Oh, it was. I don't remember what band it was.
That's what I was trying to think. Because it was you and Lewis and...
Was it Travis Tohill?
I don't think so.
No, it was Ethan Swim.
That's
It
it.
was Ethan Swim. Yeah, it was my old
The,
rock band. Yeah.
The patio that we played on at my mom's house. That's where it was.
Right.
He christened that patio.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun weekend. I'll never forget that. Yeah. So then, where do we go from there? So then.
Well, we met through the studio.
Yeah. So
Studio
the studio I worked at, Kyle's dad owns, and then eventually Kyle moved to Nashville, and what happened after that? We just became good friends.
Yeah.
We made some records together.
We did.
Yeah. And then I remember you started playing with these guys, and here we sit.
Yeah.
And I think it was after Shine On, our debut record, when we were moving on to our next one. Our
Yeah,
EP.
yeah.
That's
That's
about the time
when we
I-
actually sat down with you.
It's about the time I joined the band.
Yeah.
exactly.
That was sort of a wind up. You know, I did a couple songs on that, and then we did Electric Fever, which was an unforgettable record making experience for me. That was such a cool record.
Oh man, that's our best record to date, and you have so much to do.
To date.
To date.
Yeah. Well, we got
What's
more
to
stuff
date?
coming, man.
As of May 3rd,
Yeah.
May 4th.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Jet lag. May 4th, 2019.
Yeah. So what? So you did that, we worked at a few different studios, but you have your own studio,
I do. Yeah.
and it's the correct pronunciation is
Pentaverate.
Pentaverate.
I like to say Pentaverate.
Jeez.
We're going to Pentaverate, but it's Pentaverate.
Let's go to Joey's and go to
Pentaverate.
Pentaverate.
Yeah. So very much like making that place, and that's where we've done the newest. I guess we've put out two so far. Truest new Them Vibe singles. We've done those at Pentaverate.
That's right.
Yeah, Nothing's Better Than You and Right On.
That's right.
And we recorded two more, and we're going to play one of them in a few minutes.
And Bobby, you're a big Mike Myers fan.
A bit.
Who
yeah.
isn't? You know. So where did Pentaveret, the name, come from?
So I married an axe murderer. Yes.
That's a sleeper movie.
It's so good.
Really
Well, you know
is.
what's funny is that movie's fantastic. But what's funny is I think I did not name the studio. You guys may or may not know this. I did not name the building that. As big of a fan as I am of early Mike Myers, I didn't name the studio, but I knew it was home when I found out the name because there's a scene in So I Married an Axe Murderer where Mike Myers, who also plays his own angry Scottish father, which I'm guessing is a bit of a precursor to Fat Bastard later on.
Right.
Anyway, there's a scene in that where I won't spoil it, but everybody go to YouTube and look up Pentaveret, which that leads me to the funny part, which is when they named my studio. I don't know when that was, but I'm guessing it was in the '90s sometime before you could really Google how to spell Pentaveret. But the script is spelled Pentaveret, Pentaveret.
Oh.
But my studio is spelled like it sounds when his angry Scottish father
There you go.
says it, which is Pentaveret.
There you go.
Pentavarit. Pentaveret.
That's how you circumvent the laws right there.
The
you know?
Pentaveret.
Hey, McDonald's, it's
Pentaveret.
McDowell's.
So-
Yeah.
So I was a guest DJ on Lightning 100 yesterday.
Yeah?
And hanging out with
I
Jay-
saw that you were
with
going to do
Jason.
that.
And I mean, so many times during the morning, he just kept mentioning. He would just scream your name, Bobby Holland, and he would just because we were just
He's got Tourette's.
we were talking, and I'll say we were talking
Poor
about
guy.
just music and local music stuff coming out of Nashville, and he was like, I just want to sit down. If I ever have the time, I just want to hang out and watch Bobby do what Bobby does.
Come on!
Because
Come on,
obviously you have your finger on the pulse of so much music that's coming out of Nashville in general. Like who else? Like who do you work with, and that people would know or not know, and that you want to hit people too.
Geez.
You work on a lot of records, man. Yeah.
I get recently a record for if you guys don't know, one of my favorite songwriters of all time is named Sean McConnell, and Sean just put out his newest record that I worked on. Let's see, obviously you guys and Maggie Rose.
Brunswick. Yeah.
Do it.
Brunswick.
Yeah, the Brunswick. Oh, jeez. In my opinion, the best rock band in Nashville, Tennessee. One of my favorites I've ever heard. Certainly one of my favorites I've ever worked with. Like raunchy, riffy hard rock. Their new record I just finished got mastered yesterday. We got masters back last night, and Dan Scheich is a bad mamma jamma, and he mastered that, and it sounds fantastic. Let's see, what else is there? I'm blanking on my oh, I did a record for another one of my favorite songwriters. This is last year, named Carrie Ott, and Carrie's put out about half of the stuff that we did, and it's really great. Geez, what else? There's so much.
You're also in the band called the Daybreaks, where you
I'm in the Daybreaks.
You're in the Daybreaks, and you
Yeah.
also produce the Daybreaks.
Me and the drummer Adam Vokesh is drummer of the Daybreaks, and we co-produce all that stuff. And it's the two of us and Heather Bond and Caleb Jones, and we make lots of music
You
together.
guys are hitting the road too, right?
Right.
We're what?
You guys
Yeah.
hit the road.
We got a bunch of summer festivals and some club dates, and very excited. We haven't really hit the festival world yet, and we've got I think it's 4 this summer, which I'm really excited about.
You were talking about something really interesting about touring, like you were bringing your own sort of sound, you were bringing your
Oh,
own
yeah.
mixes and that whole thing. Like,
That's a little bit too much to
is
get
it
into.
too gear-headed, nerdy to talk? I mean, I
Pretty
just think
nerdy.
it's interesting because we set up and you could have a sound check that lasts a half an hour and the room is dialed in or the arena's dialed in. Or you could have a sound check that lasts 6 hours because everything's just going wrong and it's all going to hell, and we've all had both of those experiences. So it's really cool that you.
I think with our new setup, we're doing some things that a lot of pop bands are doing these days, but maybe we're taking it another step or two, especially for a band at our level. We've gotten pretty geeky with it, and it's very smooth sailing, and we're super excited about this. Just the technical side of things have made it so much easier, and it's always been fun. But I swear to God, we played here at 3rd and Lindsley. What was that, 4 or 5 weeks ago? It was our first show with this setup, and I swear to God, I levitated in that last song. I've never had more fun playing on stage in my life, and I attribute it very much to some of the changes that we've made. I swear I came off the ground. I just started. It was pure bliss. I've never had so much fun in my life. It was fantastic.
So that's what's amazing about having, obviously, like, there's so many facets to you in a band and what you bring to it, and and that in particular is pretty crazy because, like, that for your band would last. That's a half-hour sound check. If we had those capabilities, that would be a 15-hour sound check on our part because I don't think any of us would know how to.
Yeah.
Where do you plug this in?
Wait,
I got it.
Don't press that button. Not that button.
The blue goes in the red, right?
Wait. No, Bobby told us how to do this. Shut up.
Cut the yellow wire! No, this is way different. We don't have to do that.
It's in the text. Start
Yeah.
reading it.
Yeah.
Sweating profusely.
That's funny.
Man.
So like, so all these things that you just mentioned that we're talking about, there's such a wide range of different sounds. A lot of people go to a producer because they have their sound, his or her, this is their thing, and we want to capture that thing. And I think it's really cool, like the Daybreaks are just the gooeyest, greatest pop, just the harmonies, the melodies, the sounds, and really they are soundscapes. It takes you, we were levitating when we were, you gave us the blessing of playing us the stuff right when it was getting done, and we were levitating because the music was gorgeous. It was stuff that you can hear in a movie or soundtrack, or just the soundtrack of somebody's life, which is just taking you away someplace, which is beautiful. Then you have like the Brunswick, which is this riff rock, really cool stuff, and then you have Maggie Rose, which is some like soul and pop and them vibes, which is what we are, and so
Amazing fucking rock and roll.
thanks, man. But I think it's really cool, like that you're not just like a one-trick pony, and I guess I don't think a producer wants to be, but I guess if you became that, would that bother you?
Yes,
It would.
I work very, very hard to not have a thing. I think my thing, if I have a thing, is not having a thing. Maybe I bring something something consistent to projects, but I don't think it's a sound.
So
And so I work hard for that because I like so many different kinds of music, and I don't want to make the same records all the time. And a lot of producers work hard to have a thing. And I see a lot of producers that when they get known for something, and sometimes they're happy about it, and sometimes they make a bunch of money because they have this thing and it becomes a fad, and then they explode, and then whenever that thing is like not cool anymore, their career dies down, or they get stuck doing like
the same thing.
they get stuck doing this, and I don't want to do the same thing. I love making all kinds of music, and like I didn't grow up much of a country fan, but like I make country records every now and again. I make jazz records every now and again. I love classical recording. I was a French horn major. I like listening to all kinds of music, and so it's just I play a bunch of instruments, and I don't like doing the same thing every day.
Right.
I mean, I like making music every day, but I don't like making the same kind of music every day.
So would you, for those budding producers out there, like, would that be the advice you'd give them to not really have a thing?
I don't think that's advice necessarily. It's do what makes you happy. Like don't sell out just to make money. I mean, we all want to get paid, but like whatever makes you happy. If you want to make metal records every day, then make kick-ass metal records every day. I personally don't want to make metal records every day, though I love making metal records. I don't want to make them every day.
So George Martin, he told the story about how working with different Beatles, they all had their own way, and John would say something like, "I want it to sound orange," and that's not a musical term, and that's just like, what the heck,
Yeah.
Have you ever, like, has there been something that really kind of was like, somebody's like, they weren't sure what they wanted, and you had to just sort of find it, and it was like such a challenge.
Oh,
and
constantly.
Yeah, like what's something that's like really was so interesting to you that you had to sort of.
Probably any guitar part we've ever done.
In college, actually, I went to MTSU, and we had a whole class on that, on like interpreting, like as engineers or producers, sort of interpreting
Fools and morons.
Yeah.
Masterclass is James Brown. You know what I mean? Ha!
Yeah, right.
What is ha?
Yeah, right.
Oh man. The professor's name was this guy named John Hill, and he always had an example like make it sound more green. What does that mean? Or like make it sound more so and so, less ice pick to the forehead. That's one that stuck with me. and
Let's
it sounds more, you know, but we learned, you know, how to do stuff like that. So so much of it is people skills. Like yeah, there's a lot of technical knowledge, but like reading people and what they mean, and like learning how to be descriptive. Like, you know, you tell me you want it to sound more. A big one, a common one is warm, or bright, or like punchy. Like punchy is a good one. That some people that means more like snappy attack on like a kick drum or something, and some people that means bigger bottom end. And you got to figure out which one they mean.
So what about like, so you got to know, there's people out there that throw out these terms, and I'm guaranteed they don't know what they mean, but they just feel like they have to say something, because if they don't say something, then they're not involved.
I'm not the leader.
They're not the leader. They're not involved. You know, like
It's my record.
Right, you have to. I think it needs punchy. I mean warm. I don't know. What do I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Just
I don't know.
punchy.
Oh, just punchy. Yeah.
We'll just go with one. How about
Speaking of punching,
Yeah.
punching, who's the one producer you'd love to punch? I'm just kidding.
I think we all know the answer to that. He's flying in the sky right now.
Omitted from
Yes.
he's fine. He's actually names omitted. He's fine. He just does some offensive things. That's all.
Right.
Extraordinarily talented and very, very legendary. He just does something that offends me pretty deeply, and I wish he'd stop doing that.
Nobody knows what you're talking about. God bless. Should we play a song? What should we do? Let's play a song.
Let's play a song.
I think so we recorded 4 songs recently, Them Vibes, and Nothing's Better Than You has been out, and then Right On has been out with Maggie Rose. We also did 2 more songs on these sessions, and this next song that we're gonna play we'll probably release it in a few months, and we're excited. We're so excited.
I'm so excited. Oh my god, it's so punchy.
God.
It's so punchy.
So
warm and
That'd be like-
punchy. So warm and punchy.
Yeah, it's warm, it's punchy. It's not an ice pick to the forehead, but it's a glassy in a cool kind of like hourglassy kind of way. So there's sand. It's a sand thing, but not dirty.
Right. It's warm, punchy.
It
and
makes you want to
sand glass. It's
sway.
nice.
Right.
Thank Frank Gagliardi for all of these,
For everything.
all of these beautiful adjectives.
Oh yeah.
I know.
There's nobody better at the adjectives than Frank Gagliardi, our mastering.
Our master.
Yeah. So here's swaying to the Sinner's Revelry. Yeah.
Well, who's gonna save us?
sway, yeah, everybody out. Firing up my money and swaying to the singles revolution. By the way, that is a fine 12-string guitar you're playing out.
Oh, man.
Tell us about this guitar.
Well, man,
I gotta tell you,
how do you know what to do with all them things?
Well, usually a guitar, and by the way, it smashes. Usually a guitar has
punchy sound.
6 strings. This one on here, it's got 12.
12.
And it was one of the greatest birthday gifts I ever got. But it was an early birthday gift because on the day in which this was purchased, it was Sarah Tomek's birthday. So what we did was we went to the Crowbar. We all had a good time. We went, and there's Fanny's House of Music, which is an amazing guitar shop in Nashville. If you've ever been, you should go. And we get there, and I was eyeing this, and Larry was like, you know what, fuck it, you know what? Happy birthday, man.
Threw down my card, because in full disclosure, I missed his birthday about
A couple years ago.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
Literally, Sarah and I both, it's my fault. We missed his birthday. Didn't call him.
Reparations!
So there we were. Sarah was on tour. She was in Detroit, and it was her birthday. And we were hanging out. We had done something. We did a lot of work that day.
Yes, you did.
We did something important. Can't remember. So we were at the bar. Alex was talking about this guitar. He's eyeing it, and he is. Man, he's a kid in a candy store. He's just loving this thing. I just put the card down. I say, let's do it. And he's like, wow. And then he goes, man, check this out. And he's found this acoustic bass. He's like, you need this in your house. I'm like, that's not how presents work. But okay. So there we
So
were.
I threw out my card, and I get him the acoustic bass. And so now we're both kids in this candy store, leaving like, la 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 la. We get back to his house. He starts FaceTiming Sarah, and he's like, look what I got. I'm like, look what I got. And she's like, it's my birthday.
She's like, it's my birthday. All I got was fucking flowers sent to my hotel room. I sent her flowers.
Such assholes. Oh, man.
It's a miracle I have a marriage at all.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
Yes, picture sitting there. It's my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's my birthday.
We love you, Sarah. Yeah, we love you. Yeah. So, Bobby, what's coming up, man? What's next? What's on the horizon for you?
We got Daybreak's summer tour. Let's see what else.
So is the whole record out, or have you been putting out a few songs?
No, we put out like a couple singles, then we put out the record, and now we're kind of pushing singles. We got a really cool music video for our song Bad Vibrations that Chad McLarnon directed, and that is, I don't know when that's coming. It's done. I'm really happy with it. It's cool. I think many of us are going to be making a record for our pal Dylan.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
In July. Let's see, I'm in the middle of mixing a country record right now. I've got some pop stuff for this guy named Sean Carroll. I'm in the middle of mixing that Rob O'Block of the Brunswick, previously mentioned Brunswick. Rob produced that. It's really cool. Really cool. Geez, I got
You got them vibes where you got to finish.
Yeah. We really talked about some dates, man. Yeah. But so when you a lot of times, obviously, a producer will do soup to nuts, right? Engineer the record, record the record, mix the record. Sometimes. Now, obviously, a lot of times the record is recorded, engineered by yourself, and sent off to somebody else to mix, and vice versa. Like, is that weird to you? What's it like? You know, somebody said, okay, I'm going to record this record. We have this engineer, and we have this guy or girl producing it, and we want you to mix it, or vice versa. Is it strange for you? Is it like you just get to work because you're a professional? Do you often say, well, I'd like to do the whole thing, or you just, what's your?
Rarely do I produce something that I don't mix, because I mix a lot for other producers. There's a lot of producers, maybe producer comes from a songwriting background, or from an artist background, or from a management background, or there's all these different backgrounds you can come from as a producer. It doesn't have to be an engineer's background. Mine happens to be, my background is as a musician and as an engineer. So, and I love mixing. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. And so I mix for a lot of other people, and so that's not weird because I do that, almost every day. I mix more than anything else, because I mix most of the stuff. Actually, I can't remember the last thing I didn't mix that I produced. I mix everything that I produce, and I also mix for other producers. So that's not weird. I don't think it would be weird if sometimes I send send stuff for other people to mix. I do that a lot as an engineer. If I'm hired to engineer a record but I'm not the producer, then maybe that producer has somebody else in mind. But when I'm producing, I sort of think about mixing the whole time, and so it might be a little weird if I were to not mix a Them Vibe song or something like that, just because I sort of think of it the whole time, and it's sort of already done, in my head already.
Yeah.
And just executing it at the end is fairly simple if it's something I've been involved with the whole time.
So you mentioned like engineering. So have you worked with other producers that you work with that you really enjoyed working with, where you were engineering? You were just working the board.
Yeah.
And you're like, who do you work with? That's a producer that you're manning the controls and making it all really come to life.
Well, there's not a ton of them because I've been producing so much lately, but over the years, one of my really good friends, producer, mutual friend of Kyle and I, Mr. Tim Grogan, outstanding producer, multi-instrumentalist. We've done a whole bunch of work together. Obviously, in that same camp, Mr. Chip Hardy is another unparalleled talent. And man.
It would just be fun, like if you were engineering or fun or funny, I don't know, and there was a producer, and like you just sneak in the night and you just mix the thing. And, say, I don't know how this happened.
Well, it sounds great.
Yeah.
That's kind of dick, but
Yeah.
Yes, I did it.
Yeah. So when you're mixing, do you have a thing? Because I know some people, it's like it's just going into the hole. You know what I mean? And do you have a thing like you put the lights down, or is it just everybody just leave me alone? And you go to a special place, like, or you're obviously you're in your room. I don't know what's.
A lot of times I have those Philips Hue lights in my studio, and so I have like a preset I go to on the lights when I mix. I love I like diffuse and iced essential oil, and I kind of just get in my place. I don't really like when I'm like initially mixing a record. I don't like people to be around. I'm like very zoned. It's a very creative process for me, and I also get moving quite quickly, and I might bounce around a lot on stuff, and like if someone's in the room, it's just distracting. I like it when people come in to close out a mix when I'm pretty much done, like ready to listen to it. I really love having people come over because that's sort of it's handy from a
fresh set of ears after.
And it's easier than like emailing back and forth to come over and maybe pour a glass of bourbon and close out a mix. It's fun.
So it's from an artist standpoint of view, I think it's really cool to give as many notes as possible, right? So you can have you can remix it like 6 or 7 times, right? That's what I'm sure.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious. So, like, what is your threshold? What's the number? I'm sure it changes from band
Number
to
of
band.
what?
Or of every remix, where it's just like, oh, we're so close.
I feel pretty strongly that if my initial take isn't pretty close with a couple of revisions, that I'm probably not the right guy for the gig.
Right.
And I've really maybe like one time ever had that happen, where I just missed the mark and I just wasn't the right guy for the gig, and that's totally fine because we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And but in general, if like with you guys, we've kind of made a record and like you get the mix back and you're like, I like it, it's great. Maybe we just turn the guitar up right here.
Oh yeah, definitely the guitars always need to be turned up.
And the tambourine.
So I've heard like stories, like rumors and stuff that they have all these big producers. I don't know their names, like Lord Algae, let's just say. I don't know, but like there's a lot of big producers out there really, and people they'll do anything. They're like, hey man, or guess who's producing or mixing our record? Like we're recording here, we're gonna send it out to be mixed. We're gonna send it out to be whatever. And you're like, wow, that's a big name, like whoever it is. And then it's never them that actually does it. Is that true? Like they have actually somebody that works with them that
sometimes
is a very close with and they just put the name behind it? Is that something, or did I just make that up? It's just a rumor.
No, I mean that's omitting names. That does happen some. It depends on the project, like if it depends on the project and the budget for those like sort of upper echelon people. But I don't know. I personally don't believe in paying for a name. I think when you hire somebody because they have a name and you want that name associated with your project, at least with the producer or a mix engineer, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions, it's not going to do anything for you. It's find people that you want to work with, that make you happy, that make you feel comfortable, and that make you creative around and like make records with those people, because and maybe that is a big name person. It's okay if that is a big name person, sure. That many of them are quite famous for a reason because they're amazing to work with. But I don't believe in, especially mixers. I really don't believe in like paying a bunch of money to get somebody famous to mix your record, because especially as an indie band, like I've seen countless indie bands spend 5 times more on the mixer than the whole rest of the record combined, and it's just not not worth it.
You know, it's like one of your best qualities, I feel, is that you bring out the best in every artist you work with. You don't make it a Bobby Holland record, you make it a Them Vibes record.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
You make it
Absolutely.
whoever you work with,
But
but it's
yeah,
the truth.
that's
You know,
very
like,
true.
those are like, and that environment allows the best of everybody to come out, and there's no real tricks to that. You know, when like people like put on like whatever your favorite record is, and you think for a second that it's like the producer didn't get in the way. Is how I look at my favorite records. So they're there to like bring out like those little details that make everything. You know what I mean? When you're like calling out for, I don't know, a certain sound, or when you chime in and be like, you know, it'd be really cool here. You know what I mean? Let's put a Leslie speaker through the vocals. Like that makes the track. You know,
Sure.
but you didn't take it top to bottom and make it your own thing. You know,
Well,
you allowed us to grow.
It's not my wedding, man.
Yeah.
But you are the master of ceremonies. Yeah. and we love you so much, Bobby. Bobby Holland has been such a treasure in our lives, because literally we go in to make a record and he gets out of the way by saying like, just do you, let me get you. And then, man, when he chimes in, there's never been a time that he's like, man, check this out, that we're just like, what the hell is this guy talking about? You know? It's just never, because it really is listening, and I know it's listening is so important, but it's listening to everybody around you, and we're so grateful that you are a dearest friend of ours.
And a master.
And a master of what you do. So with that in mind, we're going to just love you with a song about love. Just for a
Alright.
minute,
We'll
right?
do a little piece of it,
Just
right?
a little piece of this.
We
Full
just
disclosure, we've never played this.
yeah, we
We've
just
never played.
We've never
rehearsed it
done
for
this.
a second. I think we rehearsed it up to like the second verse, so maybe that's all we're gonna get.
Yeah, alright.
Well, let's try it.
We're at Them Vibes. Thank you so much. We leave you with this.
Good to see you guys.
Say the word.
First off, we
Yeah.
there we go. Alright, we're done.
Since my baby left me.
Alright, here we go. There you go.
Say the word and you'll be free. Say the word and be like me. Say the word I'm thinking of. Have you heard the word is love? So fine, the sun shines. It's the word love. In the beginning, I misunderstood. Now I got it, the word is good. Spread the word and you'll be free. Spread the word and be like me. Spread the word I'm thinking of. Have you heard the word is love? It's so fine, the sun shines. It's the word love. Everywhere I go, I hear it said. In the good and bad books that I have read, say the word and you'll be free. Say the word and be like me. Say the word I'm thinking of. Have you heard the word is love? Hey, it's so fine, the sun shines. Say the word love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby Holland. Thanks for
Yes,
joining
Bobby.
us at In the Parlor. Them Vibes.
Alright.